The Airbus A350, hailed as a symbol of modern aviation, has long been praised for its superior performance, smooth ride, and near-flawless safety record. In the public eye, it represents the pinnacle of commercial aircraft evolution. But that confidence has recently been shaken by a quiet yet alarming revelation from the FAA. A single discrepancy buried in the aircraft's flight manual, specifically the data concerning maximum safe taxi time in freezing fog, has been deemed serious enough to endanger the lives of hundreds on board. This story is not about technology, but about precision. And it reminds the aviation world of a hard truth. In this industry, the line between safety and catastrophe can be as thin as a misplaced figure in a technical handbook. The FAA recently issued Airworthiness Directive 2025-13-03, requiring updates to the aircraft flight manuals AFMIS of both the Airbus A350-900 and A350-1000 models. At the heart of this directive lies a seemingly minor error, but one with life or death implications: inaccurate data on the maximum allowable taxi time under freezing fog conditions. According to the FAA, the current AFM data underestimates the danger posed by freezing fog, an extreme weather condition that can lead to the silent buildup of ice inside engine compressors or on critical control surfaces. If this ice forms undetected during prolonged ground taxiing, it can cause power fluctuations, compressor stalls, or even engine fires just as the aircraft begins its takeoff roll. The FAA warns that if such a failure occurs during takeoff, specifically after the aircraft has reached decision speed, all V1 pilots have no option to abort. Any engine instability at that moment could lead to a complete loss of control, with only seconds to respond. That is why this issue is not being treated as a mere documentation oversight. It is a critical safety hazard that demands immediate attention from all A350 operators. Once again, the aviation world is reminded that in the cockpit, no detail is ever too small to matter. What's striking about this directive is that it does not require any hardware changes, system upgrades, or component replacements. The only action mandated is the revision of a single line in the aircraft's flight manual. The estimated labor cost per aircraft is just $85, roughly the equivalent of 1 hour of technician time. The total cost for all 32 A350 aircraft operated by Delta Airlines in the US is approximately $2,720. Yet this documentation, errorless than $100 per aircraft, has the potential to put hundreds of passengers at serious risk. This is the paradox of aviation safety. Sometimes the smallest factors can define the line between safety and disaster. Modern aviation history is filled with tragedies that stemmed from what seemed to be minor technical oversights, especially those related to icing. Air France Flight 447 on June 1, 2009. An Airbus A330 en route from Rio de Janeiro to Paris crashed into the Atlantic Ocean, killing all 228 passengers and crew. Investigations revealed that the pitot tubes used to measure airspeed had frozen, causing the flight data system to malfunction. In stormy weather and complete darkness, the pilots received conflicting readings and lost control of the aircraft, responding incorrectly to the unfolding emergency. British Airways Flight 38 on January 17, 2008. A Boeing 777-200ER flying from Beijing to London suffered a dual-engine power loss just moments before landing at Heathrow Airport. The cause was traced to ice crystals that had formed in the fuel during cruise and later blocked the fuel oil heat exchanger, FOHE. This led to a sudden and severe power drop during the final approach zone of the most critical phases of flight. The aircraft crash-landed just short of the runway. Remarkably, no one was killed, but 47 people were injured, one seriously. Both incidents expose an undeniable truth. Icing, whether it affects a sensor, a fuel line, or an engine compressor, can silently disable even the most advanced aircraft systems. Small oversights, if left uncorrected, can lead to catastrophic consequences. According to the FAA, AD 2025-1303 primarily impacts operations at major U.S. airports, especially Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, home of the busiest aviation hubs in the world. As of now, Delta Airlines is the only U.S. carrier operating the Airbus A350, with a fleet of 32 A350-900s and additional A350-1000s expected to join in the near future. Under FAA regulations, all of these aircraft must have their AFMIS updated by August 5, 2025. Notably, during the public comment period for the proposed directive, only one organization submitted formal feedback. That organization was the Airline Pilots Association, ALPA, which represents tens of thousands of professional pilots across the United States and Canada. ALPA expressed full support for the FAA's directive and proposed no changes, reflecting a strong consensus from those with direct experience operating the aircraft. In contrast, Delta Air Lines, the sole U.S. operator and Airbus A350's manufacturer, have not issued any public statements. This silence could suggest that internal compliance is already underway. Alternatively, it may indicate that both parties are awaiting further technical guidance from the EASA. EASA works closely with Airbus to update and distribute technical documentation to A350 operators worldwide. In an industry where safety depends on international cooperation between regulators and manufacturers, this quiet response may signal serious, behind-the-scenes attention, quiet but determined action. While the FAA holds legal authority only over aircraft registered in the United States, its safety directives are widely regarded as the gold standard in global aviation. International regulatory bodies such as the EASA, Transport Canada Civil Aviation, the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore, and others routinely monitor and often adopt FAA action, especially when they involve aircraft with a broad international footprint like the Airbus A350. In fact, the European Safety Agency had already identified a similar risk in late 2024. On October 17th of that year, it issued Airworthiness Directive 2024-0190. This directive mandated a review and update of operational data concerning taxi durations under freezing fog conditions. It specifically applied to A350-900 and A350-1000 aircraft operated by Scandinavian Airlines system. This EASA directive was seen as a proactive European measure to mitigate the hidden risk of ice buildup that could destabilize jet engines during takeoff of the most hazardous phases of flight. The FAA's subsequent issuance of AD 2025-1303 expands the geographical and legal scope of this safety concern. It illustrates cross-border regulatory cooperation to ensure all A350s are held to the same safety standards, regardless of where they are registered. Major global airlines such as Singapore Airlines, Qatar Airways, Cathay Pacific, Lufthansa, and Air France operate dozens, sometimes hundreds of A350s every day. Even a minor error in operating manuals, such as a few lines concerning taxi time, could create systemic risk. That risk grows significantly if the issue is not addressed uniformly across all operators. Thus, although the FAA directive is legally limited to the United States, it effectively serves as a global wake-up call. It urges every operator and manufacturer to scrutinize even the smallest technical detail. Because sometimes, the line between safety and disaster is written not in alarms or warning lights but in a single number buried in a handbook. One particularly important point to note is that the Airbus A350 is not only widely used in the United States, but also extensively deployed worldwide by many of the world's leading international airlines with massive fleet sizes. This widespread adoption not only reflects the A350's efficiency and reliability in the eyes of operators, but also means that any safety directive related to this aircraft inherently carries global implications the moment it is issued. Specifically, Singapore Airlines is currently the largest A350 operator in the world, with 63 aircraft in its fleet, including both A350-900 and A350-1000 variants. Qatar Airways follows closely with 53 A350s, serving as the backbone of its intercontinental routes. Cathay Pacific operates 45 A350s, most of which are deployed on long-haul routes from Hong Kong to Europe and North America. Air France has 22 A350s, gradually replacing its aging A330 and B777 fleet as part of its modernization strategy. Lufthansa and Finnair are also notable operators, with 21 and 19 A350s respectively. Meanwhile, Scandinavian Airlines System (SAS) maintains a smaller A350 fleet, but one that plays a crucial role in its long-haul operations to the US and Asia. To date, Airbus has received more than 1,100 orders for the A350 from over 50 airlines around the world. More than 570 aircraft have already been delivered and are actively flying international routes. This translates to thousands of A350 flights operating daily across continents, and therefore any technical or safety directive affecting this platform can potentially impact millions of passengers each week. The A350 has a vast global footprint and is used with high frequency by airlines around the world. This means that even seemingly minor technical issues like an inaccurate taxi time limit in freezing Falcon have serious consequences. If not addressed consistently across the entire global fleet, such issues can quickly become a matter of life and death. This is not just a Delta Airlines or FAA concern. It is a cross-border safety challenge that demands close collaboration among manufacturers, operators, and regulatory agencies worldwide. The FAA's recent directive makes one thing abundantly clear. This is not a flaw in design, nor a malfunction in machinery. It is something far more subtle yet equally dangerous. It is a reminder that in modern aviation, safety does not rest solely on advanced materials, engines, or automation. It hinges on accuracy down to the last line of a manual. In a system as complex and unforgiving as commercial aviation, there are no minor details. Every instruction, every setting, and every procedure is calibrated with lives in the balance. And while the error identified in the A350's flight manual may seem insignificant on paper, merely a misstatement about safe taxi duration in freezing Fogit represents an overlooked variable. Under the wrong conditions, such a detail can set off a catastrophic chain reaction. The timing of this directive could not be more critical. The aviation sector is still climbing out of the shadows of a global pandemic, struggling to rebuild trust, capacity, and consistency. Meanwhile, the recent tragedy of Air India flight AI-171 remains a sobering reminder that even in an age of high technology and hyperconnectivity, one procedural oversight or delayed correction can still cost hundreds of lives. That is why FAA-AD 2025-1303 is more than just a regulatory update. It is a global wake-up call. When safety depends on precision, there is no such thing as close enough. Even an $85 correction can carry the weight of life and death when stretched across hundreds of aircraft and thousands of daily flights. This directive also illustrates a broader truth zone that transcends borders and bureaucracies. Aviation safety is not the responsibility of any one agency, airline, or manufacturer. It is a shared obligation. A coordinated global effort where even the quietest technical amendments demand full attention, full transparency, and full compliance. Because in the skies, there are no second chances. And in this century, the measure of true aviation excellence will not be defined by how fast or far we can fly, but by how carefully we safeguard the journey from the first checklist to the final line of documentation. That, ultimately, is what separates a safe landing from a fatal error. And it is why the true gold standard of 21st century aviation lies not just in what we build, but in how precisely we fly it.